Hi class, so today we're going to be learning about adding and subtracting negatives. So for a while now we've been talking about a number line, and here's 0, and we know all these numbers to the right of it. But what comes over here to the left? So all of these numbers here would be below 0. And then they're kind of just the opposite as the positive numbers. So this would be -1. So that's 1 below 0. And then -2, -3, and so on. The same way you count positive numbers. So what would be a real life example of a negative number? So some would be like temperature or like debt or things like that. So that means you have less than 0. So if it's -2 degrees out, it's less than 0. Or if you have -$20, then again, less than 0. So there's some rules with adding and subtracting negatives. The first one is additive inverse. So this means that if you add a and -a, this is going to equal 0. So an example of this would be 4 plus -4, so that would be 0. The next rule that we have is that subtracting a negative is the same as adding a negative. So examples of this would be a minus -b, I put the negative in a parenthesis so that we remember that it's still there, is equal to a plus b. So an example of this would be 7 minus, in parentheses, -3 equals 7 plus 3. So what does that equal? 10. The next rule is the opposite. So it would be adding a negative is the same as subtracting. So then, some examples of this. A plus, again in parentheses, -b is equal to a minus b. So if the problem says 7 plus -3, that is equal to 7 minus 3, which would be 4. So those are our rules for adding and subtracting negative numbers. So let's do some problems together. Okay, so let's start by just practicing our rules. We're not going to solve any problems. But the first one is going to be 4 plus -4. So we know this one, no matter what, would equal 0. If the same number is a negative and a positive and you add them together, no matter what, it's going to be 0. Now let's try and change this just into our easier equation. So when we add, what was the rule for that? Right, it's subtracting. So what would our new equation be? Good. Okay, so the next one. What was our rule for when we subtract a negative number? It's addition. So our new equation would be, good. who knows the new equation? Good. So these are bigger numbers, but we know that no matter what is this equal to? Good.
Two.
Okay, so now let's do some practice problems, but we're going to use a number line for the first few. So our first problem is going to be 5 plus negative 2. So now let's change it into our other equation. So when we add, again, what is our rule? It's subtraction. So 5 minus 2. So then we're going to draw out our number line. And we're going to start with 5. That's where we're starting. And then so we start at 5. And again, we're just subtracting 2. So 1, 2. So our answer is 3. Next problem. We're going to do the same problem, except we're going to subtract the negative. So again, what is the rule for negatives, or for subtracting a negative? It turns into 5 plus 2. So on our number line, we're going to put 5, 4, 3. So when we add 2, start at 5, 1, 2. So our answer would be 7. And now let's try new numbers. 2 plus negative 3. So we all know the rule, so what's the new equation going to be? Right. 2 minus 3. Go over to our number line, and we start at 2. And then negative 1 would be on the left of the 0. We start at 2, and we're subtracting 3. So 1, 2, 3. So our answer would be negative 1 this time. Answers can also be negative. And then same problem, we're going to subtract the negative 3. So when we subtract, it turns into addition. So 2 plus 3. Okay, and we're starting at 2. Add 3, 1, 2, 3. The answer is 5. On your handout that we passed out for our notes, there's a couple questions you can work with your table partners on those. Okay, so now I'm going to write some problems on the board. You don't have to use a number line for these, but I want you to work with the people sitting around you, and then we'll do them all together as a class at the end. Okay, and I want you to show all of your work and make sure to write your new equation below when you write it down on your sheet. Okay, are we all done? Awesome. So for the first one, we're adding. So what does that mean? We're going to change it to subtraction. So who has the new equation? All right, so then what is the answer for this one? -2. Perfect. Make sure we circle our answer. All right, so then again for this one, it is subtracting. So we're going to add. And the answer would be awesome. And then again here we have addition. So we're going to subtract. And the answer is -2. And then again, addition. So we're going to add again, or subtract again, sorry. Awesome, good job. And then back to subtraction. So what are we going to do? Add. And the answer is awesome. Anybody have any question on those? Awesome. So now let's do a word problem before we split off to do our exit tickets. So, okay, so the temperature was -3 degrees Fahrenheit, but raised 1 degree Fahrenheit. What was the new temperature? So let's start off by writing our equation. So we're adding 1, so 1 plus -3, right? Okay, so when we add, this means we're subtracting. So 1 minus 3. So if we draw out our number line, if we start at 1, and then we're taking away 3, we end up at -2. So the new temperature would be -2. All right, so does anybody have any questions on adding or subtracting negatives? Awesome. So I'm going to come around and give you your exit tickets. You can work with the people around you. It's 2 questions, and then you can turn it up into the basket when you're done. Next to the basket, there will be your homework to take home tonight and have done and ready for class tomorrow.